You know what you've done. I was a Marine. That was a long time ago. You picked a hell of a crew to start a fight with.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2022 action thriller Vendetta, a film that is written and directed by Jared Cohn, and it stars Clive Standen, Bruce Willis, Thomas Jane, Theo Rossi and Iron Mike Tyson. Now the film focuses on Clive Standen's character, William Duncan, who is a normal family man and on his way home from taking his daughter to, I think it's baseball practice or softball practice, she's killed by a gang of thugs. The son is kind of doing his rite of passage. He's got to kill somebody sort of thing. The son of Bruce Willis, who's like this gangland mob boss. So William Duncan, his daughter, is killed. He's obviously distraught by this. The son is arrested. However, he basically gets off in court because he wants his revenge, basically, for the loss of his daughter. Takes out the son and then starts an all-out war with Bruce Willis and his other son, played by Theo Rossi, Rory. Right, what are my thoughts on Vendetta? Well, this is, at times, a competent action thriller. It's got a very simple story that thankfully remains simple. It doesn't have an overly convoluted plot, which a lot of these low-budget action films try and cram in there. It remains quite a simple plot. But regardless of how simple the plot is, it still manages to be one of the dumbest films I've seen in a long, long time. That becomes really quite impossible to forgive a lot of the errors and dumb stuff that happens in this film, unfortunately. That was the biggest thing I took away from this film. The constant questioning of, well, why has he done this? Why is this happening? That shouldn't be happening because this has happened before, and all that kind of stuff. I found it incredibly frustrating to watch, which was a real shame because, like I said, it's a very simple story. It's a revenge story. You could argue, ironically, that it's a cheap version of The Punisher. When I say ironically, because Thomas Jane is in this film, who obviously played the Punisher a few years ago. His family's killed, and he wants revenge for those that killed his family. So he kind of becomes a car boot version of the Punisher, you could argue, I suppose. Now, the performances here in this film are actually of a competent standard. Even from Bruce Willis. I know we all know the state of where Bruce Willis is right now in regards to his personal health and things, and why the story is out there. It's public now. But he's obviously got a backlog of films that are still going to be coming out over the next probably 6 to 12 months that he's made, and this is one of them. And while he's not in this film much, for the most part you see him like sat in a car or sat behind a desk. He plays quite a ruthless gangland boss, not a nice character at all. And he's fine in the film, actually. I don't really have any complaints in regards to Bruce Willis's performance. Theo Rossi, who plays his son, plays a suitably nasty villain. The other two characters of notable name in this film, Mike Tyson and Thomas Jane, just didn't need to be in the film, especially the Mike Tyson character. And honestly, while I do say the performances by the actors in this film were of a good standard, I unfortunately can't put Mike Tyson in that category. Acting isn't his forte, is it? And I haven't seen an awful lot of films with Mike Tyson in them. I've generally avoided them. But yeah, he isn't great, but he's not an actor at the end of the day. And he doesn't need to be in the film either. And neither does the Thomas Jane character. I question why Thomas Jane is doing a film like this. I think he's got more mileage in the career to be doing better films than this. But he plays like this quirky character that kind of befriends the main character and helps him get weapons and this kind of stuff. And that's his purpose in the film, I suppose you could argue. Now, in regards to problems with this film, it's just there's a lot of odd things that happen in this film that just shouldn't be happening. I'll try and give some examples. There's like a training sequence when he gets out of the hospital because he's injured. is the father, William Duncan character. He's training in like his hotel room and stuff and shooting to try and get good at his shooting. He's an ex-Marine, if you like. So he's trying to get his strength and health back up. And you see this weird training montage where he is talking to himself in a mirror, which is very odd. And you do see sequences of him training in his hospital gown, even though that was 10 minutes ago or 15 minutes ago when he got out of the hospital. He didn't need to be training in a hospital gown. It was just weirdly edited and a very odd training sequence. Full stop. He buys a load of weapons from the Thomas Jane character. He spends 10 grand on buying all the weapons that he has. And trust me, there's a lot of weapons. At least a dozen weapons. Machine guns, shotguns, you name it. But you only ever really see him use a handgun in this film. He literally goes into the lion's den at one point in this film and he walks in there with just a handgun. But he's bought all these weapons and you never see them in use. The only other time you see another weapon used is like a sniper rifle for one scene in the film. And he doesn't even shoot anybody with that. So I would question his abilities as a Marine because he's not very forward thinking in regards to preparing in regards to his weapons. He buys all these weapons, never uses them. Very odd indeed. And like I said, he's supposed to be military trained, an ex-Marine. And he was pretty useless for the most part in regards to, shooting for a start. He wasn't a very good shot, and he kept getting disarmed. It just didn't act like he was trained in the military at all to me. And also he kept contradicting himself because there's a scene where he has a face-to-face with Bruce Willis. And we already know at this point that it's established that he's an ex-Marine, so therefore he's very likely been in, hot LZs and been in firefights and maybe even killed people. But he's having a conversation with Bruce Willis saying that, is this normal? I don't feel anything now I'm killing these people. I'm just thinking, you used to be a Marine? What are you talking about? And then there's just a convenient plot devices, just to move the film along. He gets injured later in the film and he goes back to his hotel room. And the bad guys have no idea where he is until a woman sees him go into his hotel room, knows who he is, and rings the bad guys and says, oh, is he here, by the way? It was just kind of like... So while the film is quite simple in many ways, and certainly watchable for the most part for its simplicity and its story, it's a very simple revenge tale, as I've said. There's so much dumb crap going on in this film that you find it almost impossible to forgive. And for that reason, I can only really give it a 4 out of 10. I think if they'd have ironed out some of those issues I mentioned, it probably could have gone up to maybe a 5 out of 10. Because it's not a horrifically bad film or anything. It's just quite frustrating to watch. So thank you very much, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review. Thank you very much for watching. And of course, I'll be back with more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.